Okay. It is Wednesday, and I might struggle a little bit tonight. I sent everybody the Eads versus Brazelton direct, which is, we're going to cover that. But before I get into anything else, I'm just going to say this. You guys, if you can wrap your head around this zygote aspect, this a priori first cause, first claim, if you can do that, you got to realize that you're one of a handful of people. When I say handful, I mean whoever's on the call or whoever's been listening or whoever's been, at least dialing in and listening to these audios. You're probably one of 30 people in the world that are getting a glimpse into what's happening globally. There's nobody else in the world talking about this. I guarantee it. And there's nobody else in the world that has any grasp of the root of the problem. So, I mean, if you're thinking this is about a Band-Aid, I always talk of everything that's happening out there as putting Band-Aids over melanoma. Melanoma is not skin cancer. Melanoma is systemic. It's deep inside, and it comes out or surfaces as what appears to be skin cancer, but it's not. It's systemic. And the shit that's going on in the world right now is systemic. It's all the way inside all of us because we don't know that it's no longer part of us. The very root of the problem is part of us. It's our DNA. It's systemic. It is not superficial. You can't fix this stuff with what everybody else is offering up. You can't fix it. It's not possible. So what I'm getting at is that if you understand the root of the problem, you're not looking for remedy. Remedy is dealing with symptoms. It's not dealing with the root cause. I'm talking about the root cause, the very first cause, the a priori first position cause. When you lay claim to the first position, there's no adversary. There's no separate claimant because there's nobody else that has a right to that claim but you. So I'm trying to get across how important it is to not be willing to take the time to re-listen to this stuff as many times as it takes to get it. Because of all the guys out there, all the things that are being spoken of, there's nobody that gets it. All the patriots, P-A-T, it's about the paternal, it's about the father side of the equation. They're dealing with half of the problem. You can't go that direction. You got to understand the whole damn problem in order to alleviate the root cause. So I'm going to just say right now that my hat's off to you guys and gals for hanging in there this long. By the way, you can't listen to these audios enough. I've spent the better part of 7 years down in this garbage. And don't think that 5 weeks is enough to figure it out. It isn't. But if you're willing to learn, if you're really, really willing to know what the truth of the matter is, the truth of the matter, and remember, the truth will set you free. Freedom don't set you free. If you're seeking freedom, you're not going to find it. You have to be seeking truth in order to be free. And by the way, freedom's not free. The price of freedom is liability. It's your responsibility to yourself. It's not free. So for all those people that are out there that think that there is such a thing as freedom, there isn't. Because responsibility is not free. It's huge. The price of you existing is giant. And the only one that's even interested in your life is you. Don't kid yourself. I might love you, but I hate to say it, but take care of yourself. So there's the paternal side. That's the father side. And then there's the matrix. The matrix. What is the matrix? The matrix is the maternal or the mother side of the equation. I think before I go any further tonight, I want to go into that. I sent myself a note today about the Matrix. There's a movie out there called The Matrix. Actually, there's 3 movies out there that are all part of the Matrix. And in the Matrix movie, you see these bodies that are in these pods. Ultimately, they're the energy source to that other creation, that alternative reality. They're the energy source. And of course, what's inside the pod is the body or the DNA. By the way, those pods look like mitochondria. They're shaped like mitochondria. It's kind of a weird thing. What is the energy source inside the mitochondria? It's actually called Christa, or the Christ. It's the photon. It's the energy source itself. So in the movie The Matrix, I mean, they allude to something, but I'm going to go into the what I sent myself earlier, The Matrix. And this is out of Merriam-Webster Online. Let's see this. Okay, The Matrix. Everybody talks about escaping the Matrix, but they don't even know what the hell the Matrix is. I've been talking about DNA, the maternal afterbirth, and once I get done with the Matrix, I'm going to go into some stuff that I hope you guys get. So here's Merriam-Webster Matrix Online. So if you guys have your computers up, just dial in Matrix, put a Matrix DEF, and go to Merriam-Webster if you're going to follow along online. Here's the Matrix according to Merriam-Webster. By the way, you better be thinking about mother and where you come from. Here it is. Number 1, Matrix. Something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. Again, something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. 2, a mold from which a relief surface is made. B is a die. C is an engraved or inscribed die. D is an electro-formed impression of a phonograph record used for mass producing duplicates of the original. 3, the natural material as soil or rock in which something is embedded. B, material in which something is enclosed or embedded, as for protection or study. 4, extracellular substance in which tissue cells are embedded. Embedded. Hey, you made your bed. You need to lie in it. 5, a rectangular array of mathematical elements of simultaneous linear equations that can be combined to form some blah, blah, blah. That's mathematical. B, something resembling a mathematical matrix, blah, blah, blah. C, an array of circuit elements for performing a specific function. That sounds like a program. 5, a main clause that contains a subordinate clause. Isn't it funny how the concept of Santa Claus or the concept of a saint Claus, A saint clause. In what? A document? A position? A saint clause. Is it creating a personality? By the way, the word parson might pop into your head at this point. That's the matrix. Something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. Does that sound like inside the womb? There's a word in there that was the word die, D-I-E. A die. Obviously, it's a dice. It's plural. Various tools or devices. I went over the word device, but various tools or devices for imparting a desired shape, form, or finish to a material, or for impressing an object or material. Impressing. That's a die. By the way, that was inside the word matrix. And I'm just going to go to impress real quick, just because. I didn't do it earlier, but I'm going to do it right now. Impress. To impress. And I don't know what I'm looking at yet. Impress. To apply with pressure so as to imprint, to produce as a mark by pressure, to mark by or as if by pressure, or stamping an impression, to produce a vivid impression, to affect especially forcibly or deeply, is to impress. And then the other word, it says transfer or transmit. Transfer or transmit. To transfer is also to impress. So I'm going to go to transfer real quick. To convey from one person, place, or situation to another. That's the transfer. To cause to pass from one to another. Are you receiving information or DNA from your parents? It says to make over the possession or control of, to convey. That's impress. That's the transfer. To print or otherwise copy from one surface to another by contract. The intransitive verb is to move to a different place. Look at that. To transfer is to move to a different place, region, or situation. To withdraw from one educational institution to enroll to another. To change from one vehicle or transportation line to another. But let me go back to this. It says to move to a different place, region, or situation is to transfer, which is to impress, which comes from die, which comes from matrix. So look at just to move to a different place, region, or situation is to transfer. What I'm trying to get across is that the matrix is the maternal side of the equation. And I want to get into this Eads versus Brazelton pretty deep tonight, no pun intended, because it is a salvage case. But before I do that, I'm going to try to draw a picture in your heads. And this is going to be kind of tough. First of all, I've had 3 conversations today with 3 different friends about this idea. And to me, there are 3 very important moments. I spoke of moment last night, but 3 very important moments in our lives that we never, ever consider. We never even think of, ever. And the first one, obviously, is the moment that we are created. And that creation, that act of creation, that is signified by the circumpunct, the circle with the dot in the middle, is actually fertilization of mother's ovum or egg with father's sperm. within moments of that fertilization, a cell division begins, and what results from that combination of DNA, father's very specific and unique DNA and mother's very specific and unique DNA come together for the first time and only time ever, where two beings are actually occupying the same space and time. The only time ever is when two beings are occupying the same space, and that is fertilization. So, and I call it the singularity, the moment of singularity. Two becoming one. Now, when the cell division begins and a zygote is created, that zygote is your new DNA, your new, unique, and special DNA. It's no longer mother's and it's no longer father's. It's yours. And at that moment, a new material has been created. The zygote is a new material. It's still not a being, and it's still not you, but it's your land. It's what becomes you. So here we got this zygote, this material. And what's interesting about this material, as it continues to divide and form, because form is granted by Father. Remember, Mother cannot do this on her own. Mom cannot create a zygote. Mom cannot create a baby. She needs Heavenly Father. She needs that biological man to offer up his material, his seed. So this zygote, within 21 days, has created inside of itself a heart that has a node in it, a sinoatrial node that now has its own signal. It receives its own signal, meaning it begins its own heartbeat. So now you have this zygote, this new creation that has its own heart. So now it's not using mother's heart, it has its own heart. By the way, the zygote has its own blood system. It does not mix blood with mom. But remember, this thing's completely immersed in mother's waters. Completely. Even though the bloodstream do not mix, mother is providing all the nutrients and oxygen to this new potential being. All of it. For a while, her heart beats for it. But once its own heart begins to the heartbeat begins, which is through the sinoatrial node and the acceptance of what I call the spark in the heart. Once the spark in the heart ignites, then this heart is beating on its own. It's beating on its own until the day this being dies. It has its own beat. Now, how it begins, there's a lot of speculation. But the fact that it does begin, I think that that's the moment that something enters that existence. Or think about it. When that spark in the heart starts to beat, when that heart beats itself, that may be the entry of a new being. It may be. I don't know. I'm not going to say that I do. But it does. It is all by itself. And by the way, that heartbeat is separate from mother's now. But remember, this material is still completely immersed in mother's waters. Completely. So there's two beginnings right now. There's the zygote itself, which is completely unique DNA from mom and dad. And then you have this heartbeat that begins when the sinoatrial node is prepared, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a signal arrives. A signal arrives and begins the heartbeat. So now you have the zygote is one position, and now you have this heartbeat within the zygote. Is it a being yet? I don't know. But is it still within the mother's waters? Absolutely. And here's the third thing, and this is, I believe, the point of arrival. When baby comes out of mother's womb, And they empty the lungs of baby, and baby takes its first inspiration, its first breath. Inspiration is when the breath of God enters that body, and that being is now outside of mother, and now exists separately from mother, outside of mother's waters, beyond mother's waters, and it's breathing now in an external environment from mother. It's no longer immersed in the waters of mother. Now it has a separate existence from mother. For the first time ever, that inspiration, the first breath, inspire. The Spirit of God now is completely in that being. And only until, when that last beat of that heart, when the last breath is taken, which is called expire, an expiration, the end of the existence of that being. And then, of course, the biological spacesuit or the prison for that spirit is now terminated. And the spirit is released back into from where it came, wherever that is. But my point is, I see three completely separate positions for this beingness. One is the moment the DNA is combined, mom and dad's DNA is combined to a unique and separate material. To me, that's stage one. Stage two is when the heart is developed far enough along to where it has its own ability to receive the signal from wherever it comes, and starts the heartbeat on its own. So now it has a separate heartbeat from mother. Now, remember, this thing is still completely immersed in the waters of mother. It's underwater. But when it comes out of mother's womb and takes its first breath, that is the moment it arrives to the new world. And it's now breathing on its own. It is beyond the waters of mother. It is no longer in her. It has come out of her. And this is important stuff biblically. When they say to come out of her, they're talking specifically about coming out of mother. You have to be born and separated from mother to exist separately. And here's the problem. Does the fetal afterbirth tissue, is it ever separated from mother? The fetal afterbirth tissue, is it ever separated from the maternal afterbirth tissue? No, it's not. In fact, it's still connected by cord, by cable. It's still connected to mother. It is never separated from mother. It's always connected to mother, which is why I alluded to this last night in the movie The Exorcist, the whole concept of Madonna and child. That medallion that they pulled out of that 4,000-year-old idea, that 4,000-year-old hole, was the mother and child, just like the afterbirth. The afterbirth is still the mother and child connected. If you do not make a claim upon the moment of that first breath, in my case, September 19th, 1960 at 3:50 a.m. Gregorian, according to their calendar, was when I took my breath. And that's when I became separate from mother. If I do not lay claim to that separation, I am still within her. And I am still subject to the Roman pontiff, who's making a claim upon the afterbirth human creature through Unum Sanctum of 1302. Until I come out of her, I am within the grasp of the pontiff or Rome. I'm still immersed in the waters of mother. I hope this makes sense. If I don't pull myself out of the afterbirth by my claim. I am forever within mother, and I am never, ever considered born. Ever. I never got here. I never arrived. I never took my first breath. Does the afterbirth, does the chorion, does the fetal tissue ever take a breath? No. It never arrives. If you don't claim the moment of arrival, you are stuck inside mother, subject to Rome, through Unum Sanctum 1302, where it says the human creature, via salvage, is subject to the Roman pontiff. The reason it's important to understand all this water talk, is because of the concept of the waters of the earth and the waters of commerce. Eads versus Brazelton, the case that I'm going to be discussing tonight, basically is creating a position for you, for all of us, to salvage or save ourselves by having a vessel available to us. I think of it this way. Biblically, the idea of Noah's ark. What did Noah do? What did he do? He built a vessel, a ship, where 2 by 2 all these different beings and all these different animals boarded the ship. Has anybody ever thought, how big would a boat have to be for all the animals of the world 2 by 2 to be on this ship? Well, what if only the DNA of each animal was on the ship? How big would the boat have to be if you only had a cell or two of every animal? It wouldn't have to be very big. In fact, it could probably be in a shoebox. And that would be considered an ark. That would be considered an ark that held all the cells of all the animals in all the world in a shoebox. But we can't think that way. We think that it has to be this big fucking boat with every animal on it, 2 by 2, walking up this plank to get into the ship. Instead, why can't it be genetic material that evidences each animal? I'm kind of talking a little bit tongue-in-cheek here. But the ark doesn't have to be a giant wooden ship, although paper is made out of wood, so it could be a giant wooden ship, i.e. a manifest, because a manifest could have a log of all the DNA in the ship or on board, the ship being the paper itself. I hope you're starting to see the way I'm talking about things. A piece of paper is from wood. So a vessel or a ship or a manifest could identify all the material on paper. And that paper could be the vessel itself, could be the ship. All it has to do is identify the location of the DNA, which could be in a vault somewhere, secure vault somewhere on Earth. I'm having a little bit of fun here because we always think that we, when somebody says Noah's Ark, we laugh and we joke, we go, ah, ha, ha, ha. No, there's no way a boat could be that big. It doesn't have to be bigger than a shoebox to have all the DNA of the planet on it. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that when genuine baby comes out of the womb and takes its breath, it's called inspiration. And that's the breath of God. And as long as there's a inspiration, expiration, followed by an inspiration, man alive. The moment it ends with an expiration, man dead. Man expires. The breath of God, the very breath is God. And when that heart stops, when that SA node, when the spirit leaves the SA node, when the spark in the heart leaves the SA node, you got a dead body. You got a dead body. So the birth process, understanding how important it is to lay claim to your arrival. If you don't lay claim to your arrival, you're not here. You're not here. So here we go. A cup of coffee to slow me down. Again, the matrix. People think they know, oh, we're trying to exit the matrix. Curse the matrix. I almost cringe when I hear people talk about the matrix because they have no idea what the matrix is. The matrix is the mother material. It's leaving mother. It's pulling yourself out of, by claim, a proper claim, by pulling yourself, your DNA, out of the mixture that is left behind called afterbirth. When you lay claim to your moment of arrival, when you took your first breath, you are pulling your DNA out of the matrix. And you have pulled yourself, biblically, out of her. Oh, the whore of Babylon, Kurt, the whore of Babylon. Whatever. I get so tired of that shit. The matrix, I'm going to go back to it real quick. Matrix. Something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. There's your matrix, people. Something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. Develops. Hey, once that zygote, once that ovum is fertilized, where does baby develop? Inside mother, the mothership, the mother vessel. Anyway, so here we go. I just spent 35 minutes trying to hammer something home that I think is probably one of the most important ideas that nobody else out there is ever going to talk about. All those patriot idiots, they're never going to talk about it. All those people, A for B, all the people talking about the trust or equity, they're never going to ever talk about this stuff. Why? Because they don't think it even exists. They don't have any idea how important it is. Eads versus Brazelton. Everybody has this. I'm probably going to go through about the first, well, we'll see. I'm going to say something right off the bat that blew my mind. The vessel in Eads versus the vessel, the ship itself, a steamship. The name of the ship that's spoken of, I don't get there until like page 5, so I want to talk about it right now. The name of the ship that sunk is the America. I'm not kidding. The name of the ship that sunk in Eads versus Brazelton, by the way, it's an 1861 case that sets the precedent for salvage. Salvage. And the name of the ship that sunk in the Mississippi is the America. I've been telling you right now, I've been telling you for 5 weeks, America is a problem. All the American people are dead. They're decedents. They're sunk. They're still in mother's water. And this very ship that they talk about, by the way, I don't believe any of these cases are real. I think they're all fiction. I think they write these cases, and I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The ship that sunk is the America. Into the waters of Mother. Old Miss, the Mississippi. So here we go. Eads versus Brazelton. I'm going to really try to take my time on this. A steamboat. That's maternal afterbirth, and cargo, fetal afterbirth, having been sunk in the Mississippi River for a period of nearly 30 years. By the way, how long is a copyright good for? Look it up. I think it's like 26 or 28 years. Having been sunk in the Mississippi River for a period of nearly 30 years, and during that time, an island having been formed by the changing of the current of the river over the wreck, and the owners having made no effort, nor done any act showing that a design was entertained to save the property, the law would imply an abandonment of it. So it says the owners having made no effort. We're talking, again, abandonment. Haslam versus Lockwood. Abandonment of property. The finder of the wreck, as such, would be entitled to the property as owner or to its possession as salver, and would be protected from the interference of third persons with his possession. See, I'm already looking at this from a different perspective. So the owners, I mean, when the afterbirth comes out of mother, mom's not going back, nobody's claiming it at all. So I see mother or mother's material as the steamboat. It's the ship you came in on. It's the mother ship, the steamboat. And the cargo is everything in her womb. It's everything in the ship, on the ship. It's the cargo. Okay, let's keep going. Property is said to be abandoned when it is thrown away or its possession voluntarily forsaken by the owner, in which case it will become the property of the first occupant. Occupant also means possessor. When involuntarily lost or left without hope of expectation of again acquiring it, it becomes the property of the finder. Discovery. The finder, subject to the superior claim of the owner. They're still saying that the true owner has a superior claim. They're still saying that. Who's the true owner of your DNA? You are. You always have a superior claim to your life, to your property, to your DNA. And remember, your DNA is what? It's the raw material of your life. It allows for your intellect to create. It allows for your body to create. It allows for your genetics to produce other children, other beings. So it says subject to the superior claim of the owner. They're still saying there's an owner that could step in and stop all of this right now. That's all we have to do. We can stop all the nonsense as the superior claimant upon the zygote, the first cause. It says, subject to the superior claim of the owner on the payment of salvage in admiralty cases. What's the flag that's flying in every courtroom? A gold-fringed admiralty flag. Do you realize that the hospital or somebody else, when this afterbirth material goes unclaimed and it gets salvaged by somebody in the hospital or maybe the county or maybe the church, it gets salvaged. This material, this so-called waste material, gets salvaged. Remember, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So when they salvage this property, the salvor places a lien upon this material. Now remember, what's the material that they salvaged? Think of salvage and savior as the one and the same, by the way. The material they salvaged is the afterbirth. And the afterbirth consists of both your DNA and mother's DNA. So the salvaged material is you and your mother's DNA. So there's a lien placed against that material, the owners of that material. There's a lien. And until that lien gets paid, they have a claim upon that property. So what is the claim? The claim is your DNA and mother's DNA. There's the lien right there. There's the problem with every one of us. There's a lien against us because some salver went in there and claimed that material. It sounds pretty funny. Let me go to salver real quick in blacks. Let's just see what salver says. S-A-L-V-O-R. It should be in here, by the way. Salver. I always say salver and savior are very much the same. Salvage, in general, that portion of goods or property which has been saved or remains after a casualty such as fire or other loss. Let's see, salvor. A person who, without any particular relation to the ship in distress, proffers useful service and gives it as a volunteer adventurer without any pre-existing covenant that connected him with the duty of employing himself for the preservation of that ship. A salver comes in and saves the ship. What's a salvo? It just means saving, accepting, without prejudice to. Salvo. So, again, the idea is to save this, they say save the ship, but the ship and its cargo, ultimately. And remember that the DNA that's attached to the maternal DNA, the DNA attached to the maternal DNA could be considered cargo. So your DNA is cargo upon the mothership. Your DNA is cargo upon the mothership. And it's left behind, so that cargo is still within the hold of the mothership or the DNA of the mothership. Let's keep going. It says the occupation or possession of property lost, abandoned, or without an owner. This is so critical. It says without an owner. What does without an owner mean? It's res nullius, no owner, no claimants, no owner. Or without an owner, to constitute a good title by occupancy must depend upon an actual taking of the property. Do they come in and take the DNA? Do they come in after mom, dad, and baby go home? Do they come in and sweep the floors and pick up that DNA? You better believe they do. And it says, and with the intent to reduce it to possession. It goes on to say, and so where the claimant had marked trees on the bank of the river and placed the buoys over the wreck to indicate the place where it lay. Where what lay? Where the wreck lay. Where the afterbirth lay. Where is that place? In the hospital. It says place a buoy over the wreck. What could that be? A marker. A marker. What's the marker that they place over the top of the wreck? What does the state place over the top of that wreck as a marker? If you went into a cemetery right now and looked at those markers, what did the state place over the top of the afterbirth wreckage? An all caps name. That's what they placed as a marker over the wreck. A mark over the wreck to identify the location of the wreck. To place buoys over the wreck to indicate the place where it lay. And these acts only indicate a desire or intention to appropriate the property and are not. It says, and are not the same as placing a boat over the wreck, which means to raise it, with means to raise it, and with persistent efforts to do so, would be such acts as possession as the law would notice and protect. So, the difference between putting a marker or a buoy over the top of the wreck and actually putting a boat, a salvage vessel, over the top of the wreck are completely different. To mark it is one thing, but to actually have a boat over the wreck with the means to bring it up, to raise it, to raise that child, to raise it, the means to raise it. It says, such acts, we're talking about the boat now, having a boat over the top, such acts of possession as the law would notice and protect. They're distinguishing two different things here. Marking the location of the wreckage or placing a boat over the top of the wreckage with the ability to bring the wreckage up, to raise it up. They're two different things. It says the law would notice and protect the boat because it has the intent to raise it. Placing a marker over the top of it isn't good enough. Not good enough. Let's keep talking here. See, I think of, by the way, just so you know, I believe that the vessel, and I'm going to speak about a boat here. I believe that the boat they're talking about is Jesus, or I call it the Jesus boat. Because Jesus walked on water, which is no different than a boat floating on the surface, or the idea of Jesus walking on water. So, and Jesus was what? The fisher of men. He pulled men up and out of what? The sea of commerce, or whatever, the abyss. Lost in commerce, lost at sea, whatever. And so Jesus, the boat, the fisher of men, was capable of pulling men up and out of the commercial seas. So having a salvage or savior or salvor, such as this boat, available to you, makes it so you can always be saved from whatever mistakes you make in commerce, in the sea of commerce. So think about the boat as your salvor or savior. It doesn't matter which, and seriously, it really doesn't. Because I believe that the flood that they spoke of in the Bible is not real water, tangible water. I think it was the sea of commerce. And the vessel, I mean, if there's a flood, I don't care whether it's real or commercial waters, either way, you need a boat to survive a flood. I don't care whether it's real water or commercial water, the commercial seas. You still need a boat. You still need a vessel to be saved from those waters. I believe Eads versus Brazelton is making the case in 1861. I believe that the American Bureau of Shipmasters, established in 1861, the same year as this case. What they're doing is they're showing you what they've done. They created in 1861 an organization. By the way, ABS, American Bureau of Shipmasters, is a not-for-profit society. It's a not-for-profit organization. Think about that. Everything that goes through this particular organization is not-for-profit. It's not taxable. So the vessel itself, the shipmasters are not involved in business per se. That's huge because it's a non-taxable position. It's an ecclesiastical position. It's a charitable organization. Saving people in the commercial, out in the commercial waters is a charitable thing to be doing, even if you're only saving yourself. Okay, here we go. So it says the law would notice and protect such a boat, such a ship. It says where an injunction has been issued and served upon the defendant, the court may well impose a fine upon the defendant for contempt in disobeying the process of the court, but not as damages to the complainant for any supposed injury to him in consequence of such disobedience. That's just, they're laying out the case. So it says, Fowler and Stillwell for the appellant. It says, appellee acquired no right to the lead by his discovery without possession. The lead, this is what they were doing. They were trying to bring the ship up because the ship sunk. What's the name of the ship? America. So the America sunk with lead in it. And anybody that knows history knows that alchemy, turning lead into gold, the same thing they're doing with your afterbirth. They're taking this lead, this worthless material, and turning it into profit, into value, into gold. They're turning waste material into, one man's trash is another man's treasure. They're turning lead into profit. That's what sunk on the America. On the America, lead sunk in the Mississippi. So they're bringing up this ship, the America, to get the lead out and sell the lead for some profit. I'm going to tell you right now that when I hear the word lead in this case, I think of dead. I think of the dead, the American dead, because that's what they're talking about here. They're talking about people that have not claimed their lives. So again, the lead is the potential, is the fabric, or what's a better word, is the raw material. And then, of course, you go on with your life and produce all kinds of amazing things in your life. And now that lead turns into gold for those that have a claim upon your life. So because they have a claim upon the lead, which is the fabric or the raw materials of your life, which is the left behind DNA, but then you go on and you turn that raw material into value, but since they have the right or title, or they have a lien against that material, that salvaged material, the waste material, the afterbirth, because they have a lien against it. They have a first claim upon everything you do. The lead is the left behind DNA. In other words, it seems worthless to most people, but then all of a sudden you go out and you fashion this DNA into profitable, marketable material. You go out and you're an artist. You're a manufacturer, you're an author, you're all these different things, and you create value out of this raw material to which they have a claim upon. And what's the name of the vessel? What's the name of the sunken ship? America. So all the Americans, the raw material of the American people is at stake here. They're salvaging the raw material of the American people. They even call the goddamn vessel America. Let me keep talking here. So it says the Pele had no right to the lead by his discovery without possession. In other words, without having possession of the lead. In other words, they put buoys over it. They marked where the location of the lead was, but they didn't bring it up. They didn't raise it. So they're saying they didn't have a real right to the product or the lead itself. I can't really go any slower. If I slow my brain down right now, it's not going to even make sense to me. Watkins and Gallagher for the appellee. It says, as between the parties here, the complainant is entitled to all the rights and remedies of owner by virtue of his finding and possession. Finding and possession. Goods actually lost by the owner and unreclaimed. It says goods actually lost by the owner and unreclaimed. That's you. The goods lost is your DNA and unreclaimed by you, the true owner. So it says goods actually lost by the owner and unreclaimed or designedly abandoned belong to the finder. Who the hell found that DNA in the hospital? Who found it? But here's the real important line right here. I highlighted it in mine. It says, the next line says, in the case at bar, there can be no question as to the property being abandoned and derelict. In other words, there can't be. It says, in the case at bar, there can be no question as to the property being abandoned or derelict. It has to be abandoned and derelict in order for this case to move forward. If a true owner steps forward, everything's gone. It doesn't matter whether you put a buoy over it or not, or whether you put a ship over the top of it or not. If the true owner shows up and says, that's my stuff, it's all bets are off, everything's done. So it says, in the case at bar, there can be no question as to the property being abandoned or derelict. If it's not abandoned and if it's not derelict, this case does not move forward. The property has to be abandoned and or derelict. It has to be in order for the case to move forward. If a true owner exists and he comes forward, done. If you go back and you lay claim to that moment where you arrived, that alpha moment, and you claim to be one of the owners of the property that came out of mother's womb, done. No more court cases. No more licensing agreements. No more bullshit. It says, by the finding and his acts towards taking possession, Brazelton became the owner of the wreck. And it did not require, under the circumstances of the case, that he should take it into some manual possession to complete and perfect his title, so that he did not abandon that finding. He did not abandon it, for the proof is that he fixed his buoys to it. They're talking about the guy that marked it. They're still not talking about the guy that came in and physically removed it. Just like in Haslam versus Lockwood. One guy rakes stuff into the piles and he leaves it. Another guy comes along and takes the piles. It's the same goddamn case. The attorneys are setting up all these artificial cases so they have a reason to be able to take your life, to be able to take your DNA. Every one of these cases are designed exactly for that purpose. It says he did not abandon it, for the proof is that he fixed his buoys to it, etc., marking out its locality, not only to himself but to the public, and remained near it, making preparations to work the wreck as best as he might on the first opportunity to do so, with the means then under his control. This is weird. It says, this finding and these acts gave him the ownership of or property in the wreck, and the right to unite by actual seizure. The right to unite by actual seizure. The right of possession to his right of property. No one could gainsay until he had manifested his intention not to unite the two rights. Look at that. They're saying that there's two rights here that need to be united. It says the finding, these acts gave him the ownership of, or property in the wreck, the right to unite by actual seizure, the right of possession to his right of property. They're saying that there's two rights here, the right of possession and the right of the property. Two different rights that need to be united. They need to be united. You know, you can't just say that's mine. You actually have to take possession of it. You can scream and holler all you want in the court that this is your stuff, this is your life, this is your whatever. But until you unite them, until you make an effort, or even put an affidavit out there, until you actually do something to have both possession and the property and to have title, until you do it all, you're not there. And you can bitch and moan all you want, but you're not there. That's a big part of what I'm seeing out there. It says, which he never did. He never did unite these two rights, but on the contrary, manifested his intentions of uniting the two rights by preparing to take actual and exclusive possession as soon as the circumstances and the river would permit. So he never really did it. He says, I'm going to mark this, but, you know, when I get around to it, I'll go get it. Well, that's not good enough. You can't just mark it. You actually have to go do something. Let's keep going. I'm going to go to the next page. This is an interesting thing. It says, Mr. Justice Fairchild. You're right. Does that sound like a fake name or not? Justice Fairchild. Fairchild. Delivered the opinion of the court. Fairchild. You got to be kidding me. Anyway, when Mr. Justice Fairchild delivered the opinion of the court, it says, when things that become property from being appropriated are the property of nobody. I don't know how many times I spoke of this. Are the property of nobody. Are in a state of negative community. The first finder may reduce them to possession, which is a good claim, and under the name of title by occupancy is regarded as the foundation of all. They're saying this is the foundation of all property. The foundation of all property claims. Let me say this again. I'm going to read it. When things that become property from being appropriated are the property of nobody, are in a state of negative community, the first finder may reduce them to possession, which is a good claim, and under the name of title by occupancy is regarded as the foundation of all property. Has anybody done this with their own life, with their own DNA? The property of nobody. I probably brought this up, the etymology of nobody. Nobody. Where is that? Right here. Etymology online. Nobody. No person, no one. Person of no importance, meaning that you've never, ever imported or laid claim to that person. What is the person? It's the title to the body. In other words, no body, no person. No person, no body. Person of no import or importance. Not important enough. Just like in the movie Hancock again. What kind of bastard must I have been where nobody came to claim me? What kind of bastard must I have been where nobody came to claim me? A bastard, of course, is what? A child of no parents. A child not claimed by the parents. Or not having a father. Oh, wow, isn't that interesting? The maternal afterbirth doesn't have a father. Anyway, let's keep going. Here's a weird thing. It says, hence, wild animals that are not property in their natural condition may be captured, will belong to the first taker by occupancy, which is possession. Occupancy and possession are the same thing. And will so belong while in the keeping of the taker or person claiming under him, or while in domestication. Domesticated. A domestic. Somebody that is working as a domestic or domesticated, like an animal. It says, so the finder of things that have never been appropriated. The finder of things that have never been appropriated, or that have been abandoned by the former occupant or possessor, may take them into his possession as his own property. And the finder of anything casually lost is its rightful occupant against all but the real owner. Against all but the real owner. It always goes back to the truth of the matter. Whose is it really? Whose is it really? We just need to make a proper claim, people. Let's see what else is here. So, I'm going to keep going because I want to prove something here. Down at the last paragraph there, they actually finally tell you what the name is. It says the bill in this case is founded upon a right of occupancy or possession, which Brazelton, the plaintiff, insists was vested in him by his discovery of the wreck of the steamboat America. The steamboat America. I'm not going to go through any more of this. I think I've done enough. This case, by the way, you can't read this enough. You can't read it enough. You got to think that somebody remember, X marks the spot. X marks, we've heard it 1,000 times in our life if we've heard it one time. X marks the spot. What is X? What does X equal? Why in all algebraic equations do they use the word X? What is X? X is the female chromosome. It's mother's lineage. Isn't it funny how they always have an X over pirate treasure or treasure itself if X marks the spot? Yes, it does. It does literally mark the spot. Hell, when you go in and sign documents in the courtroom, you sign next to the X. When you go into a bank, they actually put an X on the documents. They just sign next to the X. Why? Not why. I mean X. Why? Why? The question why. Not the letter Y. But that's what you're putting next to the X is you're putting the Y. You're putting the father side of the equation. Because X is 1/2. It's one key to the trust that's established because you have not claimed your life. And when you sign next to the X, you're offering up the Y, the father's side of the equation. And when X and Y come together, they have both the mother and father, or the DNA, which is your DNA, the mother and father's DNA, and they're able to go in and raid the trust. They have both keys now and your permission to go in and take money out of the trust. But Kurt, you said there was no trust. There's only a trust when you don't claim your stuff. The trust does not exist when you claim your side of the equation. It don't exist. So by claiming your truth, the truth of the matter, you eliminate the possibility of the trust because it doesn't exist when there's a singular owner. This is an amazing system they've devised. So, I don't think I need to go over Eads versus Brazelton anymore. I think I've hammered that enough. So now I'm going to get into the documents that I sent you guys because it'll take me probably tonight and tomorrow night. I might still get into something else tomorrow night a little bit. But let me see the documents I sent you guys. There it is. Okay. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages, 8 pages. I'm going to go through these as I know them to be. By the way, it's funny, in Eads versus Brazelton, to go back there just for a second, they kept talking about appropriation. Appropriated. I want to do that word real quick before we move on to my documents, or my recording, I should say. Appropriate. Because there's something really wrong with the idea. Something can be misappropriated, but to appropriate. This is an important word. Here we go. This is Black's page 93. Appropriate. To make a thing one's own. To make a thing the subject of property. To exercise dominion over an object to the extent and for the purpose of making it subserve one's own proper use or pleasure. To prescribe a particular use for particular monies. Isn't that a funny sentence? To prescribe a particular use for particular monies. Why are they using the word particular? Because they're very specific as to a part of the whole. And a part of the whole is the DNA of your DNA left behind. It's a piece of you. It's a parcel. And that parcel has a deed to it. Let's keep going. To designate or destine a fund or property for a distinct use or for the payment of a particular demand. Particular. Also used in the sense of distribute. In this sense, it may denote the act of an executor or administrator who distributes the estate of his decedent among the legatees, heirs, and others entitled in pursuance of his duties and according to their respective rights. I don't give a shit about that. Because when you become the sole owner of the property, the sole heir, all that executor shit's gone. All the management fees are gone. All of the administrative process is gone. It's gone. The moment you finally appropriate the afterbirth material to you, that's your DNA. That is the fabric of your life, or the raw material. So to appropriate. Appropriated surplus. Isn't that funny how they use the word surname? Appropriated surplus. In accounting, portion of surplus set aside for specific purpose other than for existing liability. Set aside for specific purpose other than for existing liability. Appropriation. The act of appropriating or setting apart. Prescribing the destination of a thing. Designating the use or application of a fund. Appropriation of land. The act of selecting, devoting, or setting apart land for a particular use or purpose. FDR, 1933. Today is a day of national consecration. He created a nation of holy ground. That holy ground is what? It's the land of your soul. It's holy ground is what it is. And they set it aside and gave it a deed. Goes on to say, as where land is appropriated for public buildings, military reservations, or other public uses, taking of private property for public use in the exercise of the power of eminent domain. In this sense, it may refer merely, matrix, merely to physical occupation and contemplate payment prior thereto, in contradistinction to taking, referring to legal taking as presupposing payment after damages are due. Can they take your DNA? Is it possible to take a man's DNA? I mean, even through eminent domain, is it even possible to take somebody's DNA? Of course not. There can be no statute of limitations upon your life, upon your DNA. They can't take or appropriate the land of your soul for any use unless you volunteer it. And that's what they're getting you to do in the courtroom. They're getting you to volunteer your very existence. Uh-oh, where was I? You know what? It said up here, though, appropriate. It said to make a thing one's own. What's the thing they're talking about? Remember that things have names. Things have names. Do I have a name? Do I have a name? Of course not. I don't have a name. Does my body have a name? Does the house of the holy have a name? Of course it does. How would you address the house of the holy? How would you address this house, my house? Well, realistically, properly, you would just call me Curtis. If you added a baptismal aspect to it, you would call me Curtis Richard. If you wanted to identify the house of me, you would say Kallenbach, Curtis Richard, or Curtis Richard, the house of Kallenbach. It depends on what you're trying to get across. Curtis Richard Kallenbach probably is designed to be an address that identifies a location of a piece of land. Curtis Richard Kallenbach, I believe, is the name or title of the land of the afterbirth. It's the afterbirth DNA. It's not me. It's the name or location or title or address, the address. It could be 1643 North Alpine, like the address where my mailbox is located, but there's to address something, to give it an address or address, depending on how you speak it, Curtis Richard Kallenbach can be the address of the holy ground that was set aside for that nation that was spoken of by FDR in 1933, the consecrated holy ground nation. By the way, I had this conversation earlier today too. People talk about being a national of something. If you were born in Illinois, would you be a national of anything? If I was actually a citizen, Article 4 citizen of Illinois, am I a national? Well, hell no, I'm not. Illinois, there's no nation, there's no singular nation in the United States of America. The United States are a confederation of states. They are not a nation. They are not a nation. Illinois is not part of a nation. It's part of a confederation. So I cannot be a national of the United States of America. That's not, I can't be. It doesn't exist as a nation. It exists as a confederation of states. So what is the nation? What nation are they talking about? I think there's potentially two, but I really only consider one. I think the nation they created was in 1861, and it still is a maritime republic. It's a nation. It's a maritime republic that is a nation, and it has its own citizenships within that nation. And they're the 14th Amendment citizenships within that nation. I think that, and it's a commercial nation. If anybody would actually look into maritime republics, they had their own armies, navies. They had, everybody that was involved in that maritime republic were protected by the commercial aspects of that nation. Is it possible to be a national while being a citizen of the United States of America, i.e. Article 4 citizen, born on the soil of Illinois? No, it's not, unless I'm a member to something other than. Because being an Article 4 citizen born to the soil of Illinois doesn't make me a national of anything. I have to be participating in something else to be considered a national. And I think that the maritime republic that flies that admiralty flag is its own separate maritime nation. And it's protected. And I think it was created or generated or began in 1861 through the American Bureau of Shipmasters that created its own citizenship in 1868 called the 14th Amendment citizen. And in 1871 it was created, the actual republic, the maritime republic was generated or created through the Organic Act of 1871. That's the ship of state. What did they do in 1933? I believe they created holy ground. Holy ground. So they could separate your ship of state from the holy ground. And they created a deed for the holy ground. Now they have a separation of church and state. So in 1933, they created the churchyard or church grounds. So now you have your ship of state on one side, which is your state, and your holy ground, the church, on another side with its own deed. Now you have total separation. You've just separated yourself by laying claim, or not laying claim actually, to your life. That's what I think is going on. That's what I think is going on. Anyway, let's see where else was I here. It said, to make a thing one's own, to make a thing the subject of property. I'm going to go over property one last time. I won't do this again tomorrow night, so I want to finish up property tonight, because that's everything we're doing. Remember, and I'm going to say this 1,000 more times in my lifetime, I'm sure, whose property is it and who can prove it? Property. Let's see, property. my favorite definition ever. Ever. Property. That which is peculiar or proper to any person. That which belongs exclusively to one. O-N-E. One. In the strict legal sense, an aggregate of rights which are guaranteed and protected by the government. When you finally lay claim to your stuff, which happens to be located inside the United States of America, the United States of America will be protecting your property. The police on the street are protecting private property. The problem is you don't have any. The moment you lay claim to your stuff and get yourself where you belong, the cops are on your side. To continue, the term is set to extend to every species of valuable right and interest. Species, the origin of species. I believe I went over species 2 nights ago. The term is said to extend to every species of valuable right and interest. More specifically, ownership. The unrestricted and exclusive right to a thing. Who else has a right to the thing in your life? The thing that allows you to exist, which is your physical body. The thing. Who else has a right to that? If you can't answer that, hang the fuck up. If you can't answer that by now, I want you to hang up right now. If you actually think somebody else has a claim upon your life, your DNA, hang up. Because I failed. I failed with you. The unrestricted and exclusive right to a thing, the right to dispose of a thing in every legal way. Does it say lawful? Oh, Kurt, legal. I don't want anything to do with legal. I'm totally lawful, man. I am. The right to dispose of a thing in every legal way. To possess it, to use it, and to exclude everyone else from interfering with it. I'm talking about property here, people. Who owns your life? You or you in what army? You and somebody else? It says that dominion or indefinite right of use or disposition which one may lawfully exercise over particular things. Particular things. Now they're even identifying the afterbirth. It says that dominion or indefinite right of use or disposition which one may lawfully exercise over particular things or subjects. By the way, you do know that the DNA is the thing and the title to it is the subject. So the subject matter is the title is the subject and the afterbirth DNA material is the matter. Subject matter. So look what they say here. That dominion or indefinite right of use or disposition which one, not one, may lawfully exercise over particular things, there's your DNA, or subjects, there's the title. By the way, if they're not split, if they're not held in trust, there's only one owner. It's total property ownership here. The exclusive right of possessing, enjoying, and disposing of a thing. The highest right a man, it doesn't say person here, people. The highest right a man can have to anything, being used to refer to that right which one has to lands or tenements, goods or chattels, which no way depends on another man's courtesy. Nobody gets to say anything about your stuff if it truly is your stuff. So my question right now is, how in the world can somebody tax your labor? They can't when it's your labor. See, the problem is it's not your labor. You're using somebody else's property, and you believe it to be yours. And guess what? The moment you claim it properly, it is yours. Seneca Vai says, when a man proves life, he's revested with his title. And now it's all yours. Goes on to say, the word is also commonly used to denote everything which is the subject of ownership, corporeal or incorporeal. What's incorporeal? The spirit. The spirit. No substance. No body. Incorporeal. Tangible or intangible. Visible or invisible, real or personal, everything that has an exchangeable value or which goes to make up wealth or estate. It extends to every species of valuable right and interest and includes real and personal property, easements, franchises, and incorporeal hereditaments, and includes every invasion of one's property, right by actionable wrong. Property embraces everything which is or may be the subject of ownership, whether a legal ownership or whether beneficial or a private ownership. Term includes not only ownership and possession, but also the right of use and enjoyment for lawful purposes. I'm going to go to, by the way, let me finish. It says property within constitutional protection denotes group of rights inhering in citizens' relation to physical thing, as right to possess, use, and dispose of it. Physical thing. I'm going to go one last thing here before I get back to my documents. Because remember, people, all I have left to do is go over my documents and explain them. I mean, this stuff, there's hardly anything left to do here as far as the documents. The word I really wanted to get to, one last word, is dominion. Dominion. And that will be on page, let's see. Dominion. Again, another one of my favorite words because I'm so power hungry. Dominion. Where is it here? There it is. Page 436, black stiff. Let me take a sip of coffee here real quick so I can slow down. Dominion. Generally accepted definition of dominion is perfect control in right of ownership. Perfect. The word implies both title and possession. Title and possession. You have both the thing and the title. By the way, back to The Exorcist. Possession. Being possessed by somebody else, some other person. If they have title to your life, are you not possessed? Let's keep going. The word implies both title and possession and appears to require a complete retention of control over disposition. Title to an article of property which arises from the power of disposition and the right of claiming it. Sovereignty as the dominion of the seas or over a territory. Let me ask you something. All these morons out there claiming to be sovereigns that don't even have a legal right to their own bodies because the title is in the hands of the Roman Catholic Church. Hell, I'd even call those people sovereign citizens, which, by the way, is an oxymoron. It says in the civil law, with reference to the title to property which is transferred by a sale of it, dominion is said to be either proximate or remote. The former being the kind of title vesting in the purchaser. Purchase, by the way, people, when you hear the word purchase, you're not buying anything necessarily. To purchase is to have a hold of it. To gain a purchase is to actually have a hold of it. Physically have it in your hands is a purchase. If you're a rock climber, you realize that when your hand goes into a crack or a hold, you have a purchase. You have the ability to grip something. You have a handle on it. That's a purchase. It doesn't mean money is transacting or changing hands, which is what we're led to believe, but the word purchase means to have hold of something. to have a grip on something. Get a grip, Kurt. It says title vesting in the purchaser when he has acquired both the ownership and the possession of the article. The latter describing the nature of his title when he has legitimately acquired the ownership of the property, but there has been no delivery. Legitimately acquired the ownership, but no delivery. If you have never claimed your physical existence, you have not been delivered. And again, now you're right back in the waters of mother. Now you're right back to being still tied to mother. You still have not been delivered from her. If you haven't laid claim to your DNA by going back to the beginning, the alpha moment, and claiming that moment, you have yet to be delivered. You're still in mother. Underwater, by the way. And you need salvation. You need salvation. You're still in mother's waters. You have not taken your first breath. And remember that Unum Sanctum says a spiritual man, a spirit-filled man. You have to have at least taken your first breath to be filled with the Spirit. Inspire is to have Spirit within you. If you haven't taken that breath, if you haven't claimed that position, you have no inspiration. God is not in you. Unum Sanctum says a spiritual man is to be judged by no man. If you're the if you have yet to claim your existence, you are not filled with Spirit because you have yet to take your first breath. Breath evidences the Spirit. Oh, where was I? I just thought I was done talking. Anyway, let's go to my notice. What do I have here? If I look at my packet here, and remember I did all this stuff at the Attorney General. I sent all this stuff. The Attorney General had all my stuff. Had everything. I mean, had my authenticated birth records. I mean, a lot of people would go, oh man, I don't have my authenticated records. I can't do anything. Minnesota Rule 220 does not require authentication for any records. So when I was prepared to do this, I didn't care about having the authenticated records. As far as I'm concerned, the authenticated records are no longer necessary. I'm just telling you up front, I don't think they're necessary. I mean, sure that they equal an original. In legal weight, they equal an original. But who cares? If Minnesota Rule 220 does not require authentication, then all you need is a certified copy of the live birth record. That's all you need. Because all you're doing is claiming that moment. You're claiming that moment, that beginning, that alpha, that point that you took your first breath when you were filled with the Spirit of God and you were no longer enslaved to the Roman Catholic Pontiff. Because only the human creature is subject to salvation. And not the spiritual man or spiritual man. So what did I do? I decided that I'm going to go down to my county and I'm going to notice my county, Illinois, by the way, Winnebago County in Illinois. And I'm going to put the Minnesota court rules on notice at my county because I know that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, that's not true. What happens in every state has to be equal to every other state. What's allowable in one state has to be basically, the law has to be the law across every state. It has to have an equivalency. So the Minnesota court rules, the general rules of practice, known as Minnesota Rule 220. I've noticed my county. I want my county to know that I know about Minnesota Rule 220. So I put the Minnesota rule on notice. That's what I put on notice. So what does Minnesota Rule 220 say? Well, let me grab it. Let me read it. Minnesota 220. birth certificates. Birth certificates. It says, the registrar of titles. The registrar of titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials. Now, we've covered all these words, by the way. So I'm not going to go back over any of these words. It says the registrar of titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate. I've got to put some more wood on the fire here, so hang in there. Any outstanding certificate of title, a certificate of title. Again, what is a certificate? We've covered certificate as well. Certificate of title, showing that the date of birth of said registered owner. Registered owner. You're talking about an owner now. I've been screaming for the last 30 minutes about ownership, property. It says that the date of birth of said registered owner, providing there is attached to said birth certificate an affidavit of an affiant who states that he or she is familiar with the facts recited. Just the facts, ma'am. The facts recited, stating that the party named in said birth certificate is the same party as one of the owners named in said certificate of title. And that thereafter the registrar of titles shall treat said registered owner as having attained the age of majority at a date 18 years after the date of birth shown by said certificate. I really feel it's important that I take this thing apart, because there are people out there right now with videos that are trying to tell people what this Minnesota Rule 220 is or is not. And it's a real mistake. It truly is a real mistake if people are listening to some of this nonsense. So I'm going to go over probably only about 3 words in here, by the way, probably only 3, that I think are important, or that I haven't covered yet, that I have yet to cover. And I haven't covered them over the last, let's say, 5 weeks. I've probably covered them in the last 6 months, but not here, not in this so-called class. So, birth certificates. The registrar of titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificates. Outstanding. That's one word I have to go over. Outstanding. I went over it before, but I'm going to do it again. Outstanding. What does that mean? If something is outstanding, can you think of something, to be outside of, out, the word out all by itself. Let's see, outstanding, see if it's even in here. Outstanding. Look at outstanding certificate of title. Something outstanding, a certificate of title that's considered outstanding. What does it say? It says outstanding. This is black page 994. Remaining undischarged. Remaining undischarged. Undischarged. Does the afterbirth ever get discharged from the hospital? Like, think of it as a patient. Does the afterbirth person ever get discharged from the hospital? This is incredible. It says, is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title. Registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title. Outstanding. What does it say here? Outstanding is remaining, there's your remains, by the way, remaining undischarged. The remains are not discharged from the hospital. They're stuck inside that institution forever. It's Rain Man. It's the movie Rain Man. Rain Man is institutionalized forever. Remaining undischarged, unpaid, uncollected. By the way, did anybody ever go back and pay the salvage? The salvage lien at the hospital? Remaining undischarged, unpaid, uncollected. Uncollected. Did you ever go back and collect the rest of you? Did you ever go back and recollect the rest of you? Recollect, recollection. Remember. To remember is to recollect. To recollect. Oh, I don't recollect. To recollect is to remember. To remember is to reattach. It's uncollected. The material's uncollected. We never went back and grabbed our DNA. It's uncollected. We never recollected it. And, of course, recollection is also memory or recall. Remaining undischarged, unpaid, unrecollected or uncollected as an outstanding debt, constituting an effective obligation. In other words, you haven't gone back to get your brother. You haven't gone back to get that piece of you that's missing. When set of stock, the shares issued less treasury stock. When set of checks, it means a check issued that did not clear the drawer's bank prior to the bank statement date, existing as an adverse claim or pretension. Existing as an adverse claim or pretension, not united with, not united with, not united with. You have two different states of existence. You, the man or woman listening to me right now, and another piece of you, another state of existence, whether it's frozen in some locker somewhere or on a slide. It doesn't matter. That DNA is another state of existence. And those two states need to be united to become United States. Existing as an adverse claim or pretension, not united with or merged in the title or claim of the party as an outstanding title. Remaining undischarged. I can't get over that. I honestly can't get over that. You got to think about three different entities coming out of mother's womb. Genuine baby, firstborn, gets wrapped up and taken home with mom and dad. Of course, they don't stop by customs and declare baby, so nobody even knows baby exists. So what's left behind? What's left behind is that damaged, defective material, the afterbirth, laying on the floor. I call it the floor sweeps. That's all that's left behind. And, of course, the floor sweeps have two different constituent parts. One is the child of you, meaning your DNA, which is what? The chorion and or the fetal tissue. And then, of course, the other is the maternal tissue. So those two different things are left behind. But they're never discharged. They never leave that place. Discharged, just like another patient. They're stuck inside that institution forever as wards of the court. Birth certificates. The Registrar of Titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title an official birth certificate pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate. Where's mine? A registered owner named in said certificate. Well, who could it be? This certificate of my birth says name of, or child's name is Curtis Richard Kallenbach. It has my father's name, Richard Franklin Kallenbach, and it has my mother's maiden name, Mary Ann Pappas. It says, pertaining to a registered owner, singular by the way, named in said certificate of title. Singular, owner. It talks about an owner, registered owner, named in said certificate of title. And then it says, showing the date of birth of said registered owner. Who else could it be? Curtis Richard Kallenbach must be the owner. And it's named, providing here it is, providing that there is attached to said certificate an affidavit. What is an affidavit? Let me see what it says here in blacks. Affidavit. By the way, it's not affidavit. It's affidavit with a T. I remember when I first got into this garbage, I heard somebody say that, and I always thought it was affidavit because that's what this idiot was talking about. Affidavit. Let's see. AFFID, affidavit, a written or printed declaration or statement of facts made voluntarily and confirmed by the oath or affirmation of the party making it, taken before a person having authority to administer such oaths or affirmation. On my affidavit that I wrote, I actually have a notary. So, obviously, notaries are perfect for that, but it says a written or printed declaration. What am I doing? I'm declaring this thing, this certificate. I'm declaring myself to be an owner, the registered owner to this property. I don't care if it's left behind DNA. I don't care that it's afterbirth. I don't care anymore. I don't care. What does it say here? Affidavit. It goes on to say a declaration. I'm going to go to declaration and get this first sentence out of the way here. To declare, declaration, declare. By the way, a declaration. It says a document by the owner. This is page 367. A document by the owner of property. A declaration. Back to affidavit. A written or printed declaration. The word declaration, page 367. A document by the owner of property which is recorded in order to establish a legal order. Establish a legal order. There's your establishment clause right there. Establish a legal order upon the property, such as a condominium, I don't give a shit about this, or master deed, by a declaration of condominium or master deed. A master deed. A system of cross easements, or a homeowners association. A homeowners association. Do you think you know what that means? A document by the owner of property which is recorded in order to establish a legal order upon the property. I already went over property. What's an affidavit? A written or printed declaration. In the law of evidence, I'm back to declaration. In the law of evidence, an unsworn statement or narrative of facts made by a party to the transaction or by one who has an interest in the existence of the facts recounted. If you don't do this, you have no claim upon the very first moment of your life. If you don't claim the substance of your existence, you are truly nobody. And that body, by the way, has a title. And Sedekay 1666 says, when a man proves life. Can you be alive without a body, or are you just a ghost? Basically, you're just the American spirit, just like they were talking about in Eads versus Brazelton, the sunken American vessel that needs to be raised so they can grab up all the lead that they're going to turn into gold. The lead is what? Well, it's nothing more than what could be potential, which is your DNA. It goes on. I'm still going through Minnesota 220 here. Again, birth certificates. The Registrar of Titles is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title and official birth certificate pertaining to a registered pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate of title showing the date of birth of said registered owner. Again, Curtis Richard Kallenbach. It says September 19th, 1960. It says that. It says 3:50 a.m. of said registered owner. They're calling Curtis Richard Kallenbach the owner of the property. Providing, well, first of all, let me ask you this. Is it possible that either my mother or father or anybody else that signed this document could claim that DNA? This record of live birth, remember, born alive, the legal term says that everything out of mother's womb is considered live born or born alive. So that means genuine baby, fetal tissue, and maternal tissue. So based upon those facts, this certificate of live birth has two potential registered owners. Curtis Richard Kallenbach owns the fetal tissue, or matches the fetal tissue, and Mary Ann Pappas is the owner of the maternal tissue. Can you see the problem here? The afterbirth is confounded. It's mixed. So you have two separate claimants to that product. Mary Ann Pappas, does Mary Ann Pappas have a different name than Curtis Richard Kallenbach? You're talking about an adverse problem, an adverse possession problem here. You have two separate claimants to the same product. Mary Ann Pappas can actually claim the DNA of all of it. If I don't claim it, it falls to the other. And those guys called the Bar Association are more than happy to take it. Again, that document that I read way back when, what was it called? Business Conduct Standards, American Bar Association. Business Conduct Standards. It is a P-Cloud, by the way. It says intellectual property. The ABA, the American Bar Association, works to identify, establish, protect, and defend its rights in its intellectual property assets, including patents, trademarks, copyrights, and other proprietary information. Proprietary information. By the way, a good friend of mine, Joseph, just sent me something here earlier tonight. And the word was proprietary. Let me see if I can find. I think I put it up at P-Cloud. Proprietary. By the way, we're not in any hurry here, so don't worry about it. Proprietary. Intellectual property. This is right out of the business conduct standards of the American Bar Association. It says the ABA works to identify, establish, protect, and defend. This is page 12, by the way. Protect and defend its rights in the intellectual property assets, including patents, trademarks, copyrights, and other proprietary information. We already know that the birth record is called information. But proprietary, what does it say about proprietary? This is Online Etymology Dictionary, the word proprietary. Mid-15th century, proprietary is possessing worldly goods in excess of a cleric. That's C-L-E-R-I-C. This is, by the way, at P-Cloud. I put it up there under proprietary. Possessing worldly goods in excess of a cleric's needs. From medieval Latin, proprietarius, owner of property. Proprietary means owner of property. It says noun use of late Latin adjective proprietarius, of a property holder, from Latin proprietarius, owner, meaning held in private ownership, proprietary, held in private ownership. 1580s, first attested in 1580s. When did the Gregorian calendar get written for these characters born to that timeline? 1582, proprietary information. The name or title of a character born to the Anno Domini calendar is proprietary information. Private property. The word was used earlier in English as a noun meaning proprietor, as worldly person. What is a cleric? It says possessing worldly goods in excess of a cleric's needs. So what is a cleric? I'm still at Etymology Online. Cleric. The Latin clericus meaning clergyman or priest. Belonging to clerus, priestly. Belonging to the clergy. A lot, A space L-O-T, a lot, allotment, a piece of land. Heritage, inheritance. Originally a shard or wood chip used in casting lots. Allotment. Your piece, the piece of you. I'm going to let you guys read the rest of that because you should. But proprietary, it's at P-Cloud under proprietary, I believe. So where was I? I was finishing up with the idea that it's possible that Marianne Pappas also has the rights. Maybe that's where it's located. Maybe that's why we can't ever find anything. That's why when we go into a courtroom and lay claim to something that is actually under an entirely different name. Maiden name of mother. Maybe Marianne Pappas is where I should be looking. Well, that can't be true either because Marianne Pappas can only lay claim to the maternal afterbirth. She cannot lay claim to my DNA. My mother has her own DNA. My father has his own DNA. I am a unique blending of those two people. Again, it's where 1 + 1 = 3. My unique father, my unique mother, and my unique self. So, I just finished. I didn't get any further. It doesn't matter where I end it because I'm going to start right back up on notice tomorrow. So anyway, I guess we're done. There's no point in going over any more of this. I don't want to keep you guys. But again, we're going to be going over all of this stuff. You already have everything you need, but I would go over certainly proprietary and see where that takes you. Certainly read Eve versus Brazelton so you understand that what they did is they created a boat, a vessel, because I'm going to be covering that tomorrow. I'm going to be putting it all together as far as your stuff, the man and his dog on a leash, or a man and his toy boat under his control. So until tomorrow night, I guess we're done. See you then.